Just a reminder that any thoughts, opinions, and points of views expressed during this podcast are those of the individual and not of the Grand Lodge, appendant body, or concordant body that individual may belong.
Hello, 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 hello. Hey, 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 hey. This is Jeff Bennett. I am the host of Pen and Compass, and we've got a really awesome episode for episode 8. We're actually going through, and we have our founder tonight of the San Antonio Esoteric Summit that I'm privileged to be a part of that project. And every one of our first 10 episodes, except for like one, two, maybe, are going to be someone that is either speaking at or helping produce the San Antonio Esoteric Summit. And so we've got a whole series of Pen and Compass, episode 2 with Rodney, episode 3 with myself, TJ Brumfeld, episode 4, RJ Johnson, episode 5, and then we have in episode 8 we'll have Frank Zepp, who's helping us with, or I'm sorry, Jason Reichenberg, who's the founder, and he's the puppet master. And so he is doing that. And we have Ben Williams, episode 9, Dirk Hughes, and episode 10, and then Frank Zepp. But we're focused on Jason tonight. And we are actually recording this January 2025, and we look forward to these things. So Jason, let me tell you a little bit about him before I introduce him and get him going on some of our topics we're going to discuss. He has done great strides in his area of Seguin, Texas, in San Antonio, of really enhancing the local degree work and presentation of the degrees, trying to exemplify those and perform those as close as possible to the scripts that we have, especially in chapter council commandery. And he's also a massive Masonic education advocate. He really goes out of his way as he's gotten into leadership positions to enhance the education locally for his Masonic groups that he's leading and those type of things. And then finally, I don't even know how it happened. We're going to talk about it here in about the third, fourth segment tonight. We're going to talk about the San Antonio Esoteric Summit. And one of the most exciting projects I think I've ever been a part of in my life. And we are really excited. So welcome, Jason, my partner in crime, only second probably to Rodney McGillvary. And hello, greetings, howdy. What's going on,
Thank,
Jason?
thank you. Thank you for having me on. It's good to be here. Thank you.
Well, we're going to just jump right into it. So we're going to start like, what is your kind of always start with why are you doing what you do? And a lot of times that comes out of where did you start your initiation experience in it doesn't have to necessarily be in Freemasonry. It could be, you could consider that pre-Freemasonry. But what would you describe that experience as?
Well, I for a long time, I had always kind of been interested in deeper philosophical topics. I've read a few philosophy books and stuff over the years. Looked at, you know, for lack of a better term, secret societies, organizations, and I was always kind of fascinated with them. And then, a few years ago, I had actually about 10 years ago, I had actually joined the Elks as my first fraternal organization. Did a lot of work with them, but and actually it kind of dawned on me probably about 4 or 5 months ago. I was thinking back to my exalted ruler time, which is the term for the president of an Elks Lodge. And I remember we have the four cardinal virtues in the Elks, and they are justice, fortitude. Um, uh,
Prudence,
Now I'm up
prudence,
on the spot. There's
prudence,
four of them. What's that?
prudence, prudence.
No, it's not prudence.
Y'all have
Shoot.
different ones in the Masonic
Yeah,
More
they're a
part of
little bit different.
it. Okay.
Um, but the idea was during my exalted ruler year, I had asked my past exalted rulers to each of them to take a night and actually teach on one of the cardinal principles. And um, because I thought, the Elks have an initiation ritual, but it's basically you go through the ritual and then 99% of them forget what it is that they went through and stuff like that. But it's a very, actually kind of a beautiful degree. It has this whole soliloquy on the Greek gods and charity being the primary virtue and all this kind of stuff. But it never gets talked about again. And I remember, and to be honest with you, it didn't last very long. I think maybe I had 2 or 3 meetings where they actually did it, and then it just kind of fell off, and nobody was really interested in it. Um, and so, I came over to Freemasonry, and to be honest with you, I didn't have a real good sense of what it was going to be like or what I was looking for or anything like that. Um, I found it interesting. Um, the guy that uh, initially got me into it was the current worshipful master at Victory Lodge, and he was kind of a younger guy as well, and was just really excited about it. And so I went through the initiation. Took me about a year and a half to finally get through the questions and answers and all that kind of stuff, because I had a lot of other things going on at that time. And I finally got about a year in. I finally decided, like, if I'm going to do this masonry stuff, like, I've got to I got to take it serious and do it, or else this is just not important enough to me. And so I finally buckled down, got with a couple of guys in the lodge. They helped me get through the work, and then I got through Fellowcraft and then Master Mason pretty quickly after that. Once I finally decided, like, that, okay, I'm really going to do something with it. After that, though, it was interesting. I didn't. So now you're a Master Mason. You're kind of looking around, and you're like, all right, so what does all this mean? And at the time, you know, there really wasn't any kind of education in the Blue Lodge. I went through the degrees of the Scottish Rite and the York Rite and all kind of stuff. And it wasn't really until um, January of 2020 is when I went to my first continuing Masonic education class at the Scottish Rite. And at the time they were going through the Kabbalion, and so they would read a chapter, and then it was a whole. They would do a short presentation on it, and then it was a whole discussion,
Yeah,
2 hour long
it's like a
discussion.
book club down there. Yeah.
Exactly that,
Yeah.
and now we do 1 degree of the Scottish Rite each month, but at the time they were kind of in between doing that, so they were doing a book club and stuff like that, and that's where I really started to understand what Masonic education was about, learning the deeper meanings behind a lot of the symbolism and the lessons that are being taught and all that kind of stuff. So
And
that,
that's all my buddies, all my favorite. That's like those are some of my heroes. Brad
yeah,
Kohenke, Chris
it was,
Williams. Uh,
Brad Kohenku is the very first person that I walked into when I walked into that lodge room. But Brad was the very first person. He had no idea who I was, and just and welcomed me, and I didn't realize that he was about to be named the personal representatives. So I just thought he was just one of the guys teaching the class and everything, and it was just and I got treated just like everybody else who had been there for a while and
yeah.
everything. So yeah, it was Brad Kohanke and Chris Williams were at the time were the primary ones.
Yeah, and then Robert Park somewhere
Oh
along
yeah, Robert Parker's there.
which
That's
is
yeah.
episode 6 for us on Pen and Compass. But yeah, but he yeah, and then I think I'm trying to think what about, and then you got Carlos Cantu down there, which
Carlos Cantu. Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
Cantu, he'll be a part of all this eventually. And then
Yep.
what about Al Mott? Is Al continuing Masonic education?
Al Mox, he was kind of a frequent guest. He's just not so much anymore.
Well,
But
yeah, well, yeah.
yeah,
But yeah, we're also gonna once we get through kind of um, about episode 13 or 14, Al and I will we'll have a great conversation that we'll get to record and hear from definitely one of my heroes for sure.
yeah, no, for certain.
So kind of all that you look at all that and don't go, kind of maybe you're now on this other side. You were kind of a candidate at one point. Kind of tell us the experiences of that a little bit. And so did you find in Freemasonry a little bit more of what you were looking for? I mean, obviously, you're very active in it.
Well, yeah, and I think so. One of the things that kind of happened with me is I lost my job probably about 2.5 years ago, and I thought I was on year one of what I thought was a 5-year contract, and I got told a year in that they were not going to renew the contract. It's a government contract. They always have option years and whatever. They decided to not exercise the next option year. So when that happened in years past, that would have had a much more devastating effect on me. Because especially because it kind of took right 2 or 3 months before I finally found something else. And so in that time, um, you know, I'm every day I'm out here, going online, I'm building my resume, I'm applying to this, I'm going through interviews where you're going through 4 or 5 different interviews only to be told, oh, well, we went a different direction and all this kind of stuff. It's not fun. And so during that time, it was stressful, but you know, I actually started to think about what was being taught in the CME class, and then by that point, I was part of Manly P. Hall Allied Masonic Degrees, which does a very similar kind of thing. And so I was like, these lessons have got to mean something, and if they're not actually helping me in my life, then what's the point? And I really think that I was able to kind of keep things together during that time because of all the stuff that I had been reading about, going to classes, learning about, and all that kind of stuff. So it really, if you actually think about and apply the lessons, and that's one of the things that when I do teach or present or discuss is how, it's one thing to describe, the rising through the levels of the universe and through all this kind of stuff. But when I'm faced with something the next day, how is it going to help me that next day? And so that's kind of one of the things I've tried to really make sure is to have that practical, how you actually apply it to your life. So,
So I didn't know we were going to talk about job transition, and I've been involved in a fair amount of that in the last 5+ years, and so it's very interesting, very parallel points there that you and I can find. Of course, I've had a few more transitions, it sounds like, than you, but going to getting, doing what I needed to do, focusing on my job search, and then doing my best emotionally, spiritually, everything to go to lodge and just enjoy being there
right.
and not worry about the next thing, or and kind of building on, we are talking about faith, hope, and charity, and a lot of times there was a lot of charity that came along with that, and so for me, I'm not even going to start telling one story because I won't be able to stop, or one thing that happened, but um, being able, and this is kind of that message to people like, well, why is Jeff always doing something with Freemasons? Because they lift me up.
Right.
And I only, and as I've gone along, and I think you and I have discussions about this, we're trying to find that group of guys that are going to be positively lifting us up,
Right.
challenging us every now and then, lovingly telling us like, yeah, you need to kind of maybe look at yourself a little bit, but at the same time, it's always like, I'm here for you, man, and you're here for me, and it's and I don't want to be this episode to be all about that, but you really hit on something that there's few things in life, and death of a loved one, a divorce, job loss is about the third.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
not
and I had
the
gone
third.
through the second one as well. So it would, there's a
Well,
lot of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so for and I think we don't. I think what helped me in my job search was figuring out and getting the right. I was blessed to be in a lot of job seeker groups that are kind of directly, indirectly, non-denominational Christian ministries,
Right.
and accept people of all faiths. It's just more of where they kind of started at, and with that, it was there's stages of grief in your job loss.
Right.
The same things that you're going to go through in those other times that are you have the challenges in your life, and getting to go and sit down next to somebody that doesn't know the ritual as well as you, or whatever, it didn't matter. I just
Right.
wanted to be around, and my Scottish Rite in Fort Worth, because I got really involved with it at different levels, and it helped me get my mindset right. It helped my attitude and all
Yeah.
these things.
Well, and that was so just a little bit, more about me. So I spent 18 years as a military spouse. My ex-wife was active duty Army, and she was an active duty Army officer. So if you know anything kind of about that world is if when you're a husband of a military wife, you don't really have a lot of you don't really have a lot of friends because even to this day, the majority of her peers were men. So then they would be military wives, and they don't really. Yeah, I got invited to teas and Tupperware parties. It's like,
Yeah, nobody
well,
asked
it
you to
was
go
like,
out and shoot shotguns and go
no,
shoot
I
trees or
mean,
anything, or go
and
play
the thing
golf,
is,
or let's go throw some darts or play some
right,
dominoes or something, right?
so the majority of them would have been, and so the ones that were active duty, they not that they don't want to have anything to do with you, but you're not you're not in their world, and even her world was smaller because she was in the officer world. The vast majority are enlisted, not really supposed to be like buddy buddy, when you're in the leadership versus enlisted. So even the guys that may have been had, their wives were enlisted, they don't really want to they don't really want to hang out with you either. And so, for a long time, when I got to San Antonio, to be honest with you, I just did not really have any friends. And that really didn't change when I joined the Elks. Now, one of their cardinal principles is brotherly love, and we preach that we're supposed to be looking out for each other. But um, not to throw rocks at the Elks, I'm still a member. and I still do things that they're great people, but it's not the same. There's not that
Bond,
there's not that bond. There's not that
mystic tie.
necessarily fraternal link. It wasn't until really I got into Freemasonry that at this point, like I actually have friends. I actually have people that I feel like I could actually call if I needed help. And the one thing that did finally break through where I was able to finally get hired on with a company was because a guy in my lodge had, said, hey, our company is constantly looking for people and stuff like that. And, and he was able to get me an interview. And, I mean, it's not like he, got me the job. He didn't have that authority, but I mean, he got me pointed in the right direction. But
Called networking.
this is all networking. But it's also at the same time, it was people did actually reach out. And I feel like at this point, if I needed, help with something or anything that I actually have friends that I would be able to actually, reach out to. So,
Well, hold on to that thought. I know we're going to talk about that in segment at the end of segment three.
oh,
So,
sorry, am I jumping ahead?
no, you're not. No, no, no. That's great. It's a great foreshadowing, of
Right,
esoteric summitry type things.
right.
But so you've gotten involved, and now you want to express yourself a little bit. You love the education. You're thinking through interpreting symbolism and degree work and things like that. How's that manifested itself? Maybe through papers or essays, magazine articles. I don't
Well,
think you've written a book
yeah,
or anything, but even like PowerPoints and things
right.
like
No, I have done some. Nobody's quite interested in what I have to say to publish me, and yeah. But I have done some. I have done some presentations. Um, Couple of for our Allied Masonic degrees. One was kind of focused on the Order of the Red Cross. Another one, I did a kind of a deeper dive into when we formed Juan Seguin Council on Juan Seguin himself and his kind of his background. I
Did you
am
take it
doing,
from his background as a Freemason?
yeah, I mean, there's no more of it, his historical thing. Honestly, there's not a whole lot on his Masonic career
Yeah.
and stuff, but more of the historical figure when it comes to the Texas Revolution, all that kind of stuff. Um,
But
I
you live in that area where all that was actually happened,
Yes.
practically happened.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah,
I live what 3 4 hours, 5 hours, 4 or 5
right,
hours more above that. So yeah, it's really cool because you're surrounded by it all the time with
right,
celebrations and remember this and that kind of stuff.
exactly. Um, then I did a presentation at Training Lodge last year on the first labor of Hercules, and I'm working on I'm up to like the seventh labor, and the presumed worshipful master for Victory Lodge has I don't know, he's either asked me or he's agreed to it, but I'm going to for next year I'm going to do all 12 labors of Hercules and how it relates to Freemasonry. Um, so one labor a month, so the entire year's worth of um, teachings for next year. And then the other bigger thing I've done is I'm a member of the Scottish Rite Education Committee now, and so my portion generally is the kind of the introduction to the degree, but also the symbolism and some behind the degree. And so those are usually 25, 30-minute long presentations and stuff like that. And I really try to pull out because there's so much symbolism. I mean, you can't go over every single thing that in a Scottish Rite degree, But I usually try and I'll pull out specific things and kind of expand on those. So I've probably done, I want to say 15 or 20 of those. I mean, I've got kind of a catalog of stuff I've done now. Um, but just working on things here and there. I'm also the education officer for District 35B. So not only
Which is a part of the Grand Lodge of Texas
correct.
on the Blue
Sorry.
Lodge level. Sorry,
Yes.
just kind of
Right. I forget. Yeah.
those of you following home, keeping score at home.
Right. But because to me, Masonic education not only covers the esoteric, but also lodge operations as well. Like, how do you run the different Grand Lodge programs? How do you do the um, annual audit and that kind of stuff? So last year we had in the spring we had an education night, and it was specifically on lodge operations, specifically geared towards the incoming master and wardens, potentially the secretary and treasurer, to help them. And I'm going to be doing that again this year. And again, it's focused on lodge operations as opposed to uh, the esoteric
Yeah, symbolism.
side of it. Yeah.
Well, and that's why I asked that question, because I bring up people are always talking about, whether it be in person or online or whatever, and for me they throw out this big broad word or term, Masonic education. And so a lot of times I like to ask people as they come in, because not everybody's got the same perspective. And for me, I don't even I talk more about interpreting symbolism instead of it being education anymore. I want to even get more defined on that, even in my pursuit of even kind of explaining what's going on. But you're right, and I appreciate your answer from it being kind of a omnidimensional, multidimensional approach, not one size fits all. And I think that's been my frustration in 25 years of hearing people and they're like, oh, no, no, no. We're just going to teach everybody how to do. I'm an accountant and everybody has to be an accountant like me
Right.
or whatever. And so, and everybody just needs to learn how to do the audit or, we're only going to teach, well, that's the whatever. And I'm like, no, that's learning the degree. That's not really fully education. Anyway, we won't get into that any further, but well, this was a good place to kind of stop right here. And thanks for sharing your thoughts on that. And I'm really impressed that I haven't stopped long enough and all the other things that we usually normally are pursuing, I guess, to talk to you about your educational things. So maybe I need to find time to come to your Blue Lodge and learn more about Hercules and the different labels. So that's what I took out of that segment. It's like, well, wow, maybe he knows something I don't know, and I need to be more enlightened. So with that, we're going to stop segment one here of episode. This is episode 8 of Pen and Compass. We're talking with Jason Reichenberg from the San Antonio area, Seguin, Texas, to be exact. And we'll be right back after this break. So go to the YouTube channel while you're taking a break with us and like and subscribe not only to this episode, but subscribe to the channel. And there's a playlist there that you can find that has all the uploaded and current catalog of episodes for Pen and Compass. We'll catch you on the next side. Howdy. So excited about telling you about this great event, June 2025, San Antonio Esoteric Summit. We're going to have a great lineup of speakers. It's a day of interactive subject matter experts coming in from multiple states: Nebraska, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Colorado, all-star lineup. And it's a great event, 50 participants, esoteric subject matters study, great education. very interactive. I'll be starting off the day talking about interpretation of symbolism. RJ Johnson will be bringing us his views on Esoteric 101 and how that all works. Then we'll go into alchemy with my buddy Rodney McGillvary. TJ Brumfeld will be wowing us with his knowledge and insight on Kabbalah. Dirk Hughes will be also telling us about how bees and beehives, the symbolism Masonically, as a beekeeper himself. And then we're going to end the evening with Ben Williams unpacking Martinism for us and talking about that. There'll also be 2 other sessions during the day where the different speakers will get together and kind of collaborate, kind of in a jam session, kind of like a concert at the end. And then we're also going to have a panel for each individual presenter to go over a question and just kind of tell you about themselves and their process. Sounds like a great day. It's going to be a wonderful time. It'll be one of the things that you won't want to miss in 2025. So go and register, sign up, be one of those 50 participants, and we'll see you there in San Antonio. Hey, we're back for segment 2. We got Jason Reichenberg here. This is episode 8, Pen and Compass. And we're podcasting and talking about some great things tonight. We're recording this in January 2025. So, Jason, what do you get out of Freemasonry? I mean, you've kind of talked about it in segment 1 a little bit, but in segment 2 here, what do you think you get out of it, and why do you so involve it in your daily life?
Yeah, I did talk about the kind of the friendships and the brotherhood, and that's certainly that is certainly one thing. On a different note, and I think some people probably would find it a little surprising, especially if you were a devout Christian. So I consider myself a Christian. Um, and one of the things that when I was growing up, it was a very, very literal interpretation of the Bible and Christianity and all that kind of stuff. And to think about or learn anything different than what was being taught would have been considered very, very taboo. And as I got older, I kind of realized, like, well, if your faith and your beliefs crumble at the any kind of introspection or anything like that, and what is it you're really believing in? And a lot of the stuff that I've been doing with Freemasonry, we study a lot of different topics. And a lot of those are connected to Christianity and what does it mean and what's the symbolism, and is it an allegory, is it all this kind of stuff. And I will tell you, one of the things I do get out of it is it actually has allowed me to have a deeper understanding of my own Christian beliefs than I think I would have. That yes, it does challenge it, but at the same time, it also reinforces it. And it's very, very interesting because you really wouldn't expect it. Like, why would be looking at all these different topics reinforce um, what seems to be contrary actually ends up being complementary to it. And so I think that's that is in addition is what I have found really interesting, because you'll take up a topic and it seems to directly contradict. I mean, I feel like I've got Pastor Matthew looking over my shoulder, like it's just about to you know choke me out for even thinking about something like a tarot card or a zodiac sign or something like that. Um, but then when you really start thinking about it, where you start learning about it, you realize that in a lot of ways, it actually kind of complements what you do believe. And even as a Christian myself, I feel like it's actually reinforced it in a lot of ways.
So I can't remember the Masonic author, but one of the ones that we, obviously from like the 1800s, wrote Freemasonry is the handmaiden of Christianity.
Okay.
In a time whenever a majority of Freemasons were of some Christian background and faith, denomination, Catholic, Protestant, those type of things. And this was an English or an American author, I can't remember which, but basically is the handmaiden. And so what does a handmaiden do? Assist. Like, if you were
Right.
trying to get out the door and get dressed, especially back in those days with what they had, you had to almost have someone help you from the medieval times, like put your sleeves on or put your armor on or whatever. If you
Right.
were if you were going into formal wear, you're gonna have to, that kind of valet or butler or something. This is person that comes along beside you and helps make things work easier for you. And I think that's
Right.
what you're describing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think, and it's interesting that here again you brought up something that when 25 years ago, whenever I was deciding that I was going to become a Freemason, and first thing I did, we did have electricity back then 25 years ago, and we did have the internet back then, and we did have websites, and you did a search on whatever, I guess it was Yahoo back then or some of those type things, and it's the only browsers and search engines that we had, and the first things that would come up would be all the anti-Masonic stuff. That would be
Right.
what we always hit the top, and so you're kind of like challenged by that, and you're like, what am I doing? And then as we went through the degree work, we were provided with different books. They said, hey, your wife, your family, anybody can read this. Your friends, your coworkers, your neighbors, whatever. And so that was kind of, and so I'm not going to go into that whole thing about my own story, but I see what you're saying there, and I think you're right. Your faith has been well founded because it's been challenged. If you
Right.
never if you never have, do you really have faith and you really have hope and you really have this kind of, to a certain sense, self-belief, are you really, does it really exist inside of you if it's never challenged?
Yeah, and I think that's probably the biggest thing it has allowed me to challenge it, and I've been challenged by people, other Masons and stuff like that, on their thoughts and what it means and stuff like that, um, and I've kind of conveyed that same notion to my family that if it all falls apart from the smallest amount of scrutiny, then what really was it? You know what I mean? So if it doesn't hold up to that, then maybe it's not the right thing to be believing in. So that's the way I've looked at it. So I I I don't understand the reluctance on some to say, I don't need to see anything else. I don't need to read anything else. Nobody else needs to read it. You only need to read this one thing, and you just need to believe that. And it's like, okay, maybe that what you're reading is correct, but if that's true, then why does it matter what else I look at or study or compare or anything like that? So that whole kind of just challenging your belief systems has been helpful for me.
So one of the things I like to discuss with the guest on this podcast is kind of give you a utopian thought of all the vices and all the stuff that goes through life that you have to do every day just to kind of get through your day. If all that was taken away and you could just focus your time on what's in your true self, what would you do? What would you focus on if you were going to be an expert in something beyond any expert on the face of the earth?
Um, golly. You know, I it it kind of at a macro level, and I think this probably happens to particularly men as they get older. You start to wonder what kind of legacy that you're going to leave behind. And I think for me, um, I probably would focus on um, where I could, to me, where I could have the most impact on other people's lives and making their lives better. I think is probably, and for me, I think, you know, um, there's a number of ways that you can do that. Um, but for me, um, I I think trying to improve people's lives by educating them and seeing the world in a different way, and hopefully that you can take those lessons and use that to improve their lives. I think that's what I would try. I think that's what I would try and focus on. If I didn't have anything else that I needed to do, is to go out there and try and make an impact by, you know, educating and teaching people how to think, how to look at all these different things, and and hopefully that then inspires them to go and take that and share it with others. So it's a very, very tough question. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Kind of funny, that's here again. Jeff and Jason not too far off on what they would do. For
Right.
me, I would, well, I'm kind of already doing it, but encouraging people to think and challenging them. Um, for me, interpreting symbolism and kind of being this theologian of sorts for, especially York Rite
Right.
Freemason, right? From a
Right.
certain Protestant background. So, but anyway, what else we got here? So you're doing a lot of current local, regional leadership. You kind of talked about it in segment one.
Right.
You're talking about your initiatic experiences and things like that, and degree work and things. So what are you doing right now? Share about some of your recent uh, achievements, and then your future goals for Masonic leadership in your own personal Masonic journey.
But yeah, so I think the area where I've had kind of the most success right now is so I'm here in Seguin. It's for those that don't know, it's about an hour east of San Antonio. I joined the chapter council and commandery out here, and about three about 3 years ago, um, you know, we they had really kind of been relying on other festival or other chapters and councils or commanderies to hold either festivals to confer the degrees, or other commanderies to hold field days, and and then they might get one or two guys that might come out to Seguin and everything. Um, and there was one time where there was a festival that was planned and then it got canceled. They're like, oh, well, we're going to have to wait until. And I finally was like, guys, like, why are we relying on anybody else to do this? Like, yeah, you know what? It's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be rough. We're going to have to kind of learn all of this stuff, and we're going to have to get help in, but let's do it ourselves. Like, stop relying on anybody else. And so fortunately, they went along with it. And we went from barely being able to open with 5-man in all three bodies, to where we just had a called meeting for the commandery to there's a couple of guys that couldn't make it to officer installation, and so we needed to install them before January 15th and all this kind of stuff. And we had a called meeting, and we had 11 that showed up. So 2 more than what we needed to do the 9-man opening. We regularly now at our chapter and council meetings, we have 15 to 20 in our chapter and council meetings. When we at 2 or 3 years ago, we were barely able to open with 5.
Yeah, but you empowered them to for their own ownership, for their own individual ownership in a very positive way. I mean, you and I've talked a lot about this. I'm not going to sit here and we've worked on a lot of that stuff together.
Yes.
I'm glad. I loved the opportunity to kind of consult or support you in those type of ways. And so as you were sitting there talking about it, I remember that night that or that kind of span of time, and you and I had been talking, and you're like, okay, help us. We're going to do the commander degrees for the first time in decade something plus.
Right.
Everybody's kind of the new guys, and I'm like, you gave me the date. I'm like, I really can't come help you, but maybe here's some other people. And then we were about to confer those same degrees, Order of the Red Cross, and I know Order of the Malta. And as we set up things, I went through, and before everything started, I took pictures for you, and I sent those to you. So you could just kind of pull stuff out of the closet and out of cabinets and just go, oh, this is where it's at, and oh, physically this is where it goes in the room.
Right.
So it wasn't just a schematic. I gave you as much as I could without walking you around FaceTiming. Yeah, but
right. No, and all that was very helpful, and it's gotten us to a point where so we're in Seguin. So further south, there's a town called Kennedy, and there's some guys down in that area that they're bringing more guys in, and so it's like, okay, so we've started to build this up here. Like, let's keep this momentum going. And so I looked in the Constitution statutes, and there's a provision for creating a chapter and council club. So I said, so it's like, guys, why don't you think about forming a club down there to where maybe you take one of the degrees and you practice on those. And then, if you guys build that up enough, then maybe we can restart a charter down there. So it's the idea, like, I don't want just this, it's great to build this up here, but it needs to grow. It needs to expand.
divide and conquer. Yeah,
Right.
like mutate, like kind of permutate, right?
Right.
Yeah, yeah. I love it.
But the crux of it is, and I'll relate this to the Blue Lodge as well. The crux of it is we have to give them something to come back to. So if we get all these guys in, which is fantastic, got lots of guys coming in, but if they don't stick around, it's all for naught. And the reason they won't stick around is because they don't find value in it. And if they don't find value in it, they will go somewhere else, or they will just stop coming. And so part of that is, great. You went through the degrees, went through, chapter council commandery, and you got this title and this title. Okay, what does it mean? Why did you do that? Why are we continuing to come out once a month to do these meetings? What does it mean? And that's part of what the whole, you've come out for a couple couple of meetings and done some fantastic presentations, to
Thanks.
go back to the degrees and say, okay, this is what you went through. This is why. This is what this meant. This is what you were supposed to learn. Because, especially in a festival format, you're not going to get everything and understand everything that's going on. A lot of moving parts, a lot of pieces and stuff like that. And if anybody says that they understood everything through those degrees the first time through, are lying to themselves, because there is just no way. And so going back and saying, this is what this means. The guys, they are very appreciative, but I will tell you, I'm not going to just tell who, I've had some pushback on some that say, you know what, I really came out here just to do the degrees. I don't know why we're doing all this education stuff. And, just like, they just don't understand it. And they're like,
Yeah.
why are we doing all this? This doesn't make any sense. I'm not interested in this stuff. It's like, well, I can't please everybody. So I have
Some
to
people
go to
like
the
icing, some people like cake, and I always, and
yeah,
usually when someone brings up something like that to me, I'm like, hey, there's going to be somebody that's going to be inspired by this, and they may be your next high priest
right.
of your
But
chapter.
where I was going at with the Blue Lodge is, I got so I'm doing something I'm worshipful master of my lodge in San Antonio, and I set up an entire year worth of speakers to come in and kind of doing something very similar. Like, you went through the first 3 degrees. Now, what is this? What does this all this means and everything like that. So, we're in January now. I'm over halfway through my year, and this was not done on purpose, but I got to thinking about it. I was like, you know what? The one thing I have never mentioned this whole year is membership, how to grow membership. Because to me, membership is a secondary issue. If you don't give your brothers what they're looking for and they don't find value, memberships means nothing. Great. You get guys coming in, going through degrees. That's great. Your numbers grow. Wonderful. But if they go there and then they start sitting through your meetings, and they're like, so we open and close and pay some bills and that's it. Like, why am I spending time away from my family? Why am I could be hanging out with friends. I could be doing
Well, you and I
whatever.
have to put on like pants to come back to lodge. Like, you not home
Right.
office, so
Right.
we put on like socks and shoes, like
Right.
shoes to go over our toe, like footwear that goes. I
Right.
mean, for me, it's like, okay, I got to have like motivation to get dressed to go back out in public. you
Right.
After home, I work from home like you do, and
Right.
and really seriously, that's where, especially in our society and culture today, like, why am I gonna be and you got to make them feel important. And I know
Right.
I get to see it firsthand. And I don't know if I've said nice things enough about it, but I'm really impressed whenever I do. Whether anytime that I'm in a meeting that you've led, even the other night, I got to come and
Mhm.
hopefully you took to heart what I said about my cousin tagged
Right.
along
Oh
because
yeah.
the other
Yeah.
things that we were doing that night, and he got to interact. And he's the son of one of our brother Freemasons, and I can't tell you I'll be 53 years old here pretty soon, and you gave me an early birthday gift because my family member felt very welcomed at your meeting, and a lot of that has to do with not only having a great set of guys, but your leadership in that. So,
Oh, I appreciate
not to make it too much of a pep rally for Jason
it.
at the same time.
Right.
So,
Don't worry. I have plenty of people who keep me humble. Don't worry.
well, that's why I try to say,
Not everybody's appreciative of Jason and
well,
his
I walk
influence.
up to I walk up to a lot of people that have high profile jobs, whether they be in Freemasonry or outside of it. And I just look at them and I go, thank you for what you do. Because I know not a, and I think people that are working for us at a restaurant or, I mean, I think I try to be really this kind of blessing to people in their day. So that's just my little side ministry that I have working in the background. But so you are very, I love it. You are always engaging me in, hey, let's get together. I need your partnership. I need your help in this or whatever, however you want to phrase it and frame it. But you really are great at kind of collaborating with others, with kind of, you know, whether you're a lot of times, you're kind of leading it. It's a lot of your vision. We're going to talk about that in the next segment, specifically about an event that's come out of that. But what do you enjoy about that? I mean, I know I like about it, but what is Jason? What is his thing? Whenever you're like, okay, I'm going to get these people together and
Right.
those type of things.
Yeah, I think a lot of it started. A lot of it actually did start with the Elks. I ran a 5K and Flag Day Festival for 3 years when I was in San Antonio at the San Antonio Elks, and we had partnered with a VFW motorcycle group to do a color guard. We had partnered with a local racing company to actually put on the actual race itself. We had chili cook-off that went along with it, partnering with them, and actually other Elks lodges. So a lot of these different groups kind of came together to put on this event. And the idea for me, is that the rising tide floats all boats. So the idea is that there's not going to be one single entity that's, is going to come out ahead. We all are going to benefit by working together. And the other thing is it's spreading out the work. It's where you yourself are not trying to do this, all together. One of the first things that, we did kind of collaboratively with at Victory Lodge was our annual Christmas party. We got together with the other lodges that meet at Alcifar Shriners. There's four of them, five of them. I don't know, however many lodges there are. But at the time, I think there were two other lodges, and so we planned a joint Christmas party for all the lodges. And our lodge did like the main course, and then one lodge did the dessert and arranged for Santa. Another one did decorations and sides and all that kind of stuff. And it took off the pressure of one lodge trying to get people to come out for an event, to where now you've got three or four lodges coming together, and say maybe only a few from each lodge show up, but they're coming from three or four different lodges. So now we had 70 people at a Christmas party and plenty of food. Everybody's talking. I mean, it's a really great time, and we've done that the last couple of years. Um, so to me, it's if people can put aside their ego to say that, you don't have the answers for everything. And there's other people that might have a better idea than you, but you're never going to know about it if you just, well, I'm going to plan this. Everything's going to be done the way I want it to be done. I'm not so arrogant to think that I have all the answers for everything. And so to me, being able to first off spread that work around, and also to get ideas from other people who have, you know, maybe they've done this five or six more times than I have. And they're like, okay, you want to try it this way. well, we tried it this way and it doesn't work. So maybe don't do that. You're like, oh, okay, well, all right, well, that makes sense. All right, well, let's do it some other way. So, I really try to get different groups together to try and work together. And then that way, all of us benefit, or all of us share in the heartache when it all goes south. Whatever.
There's enough fingers to point at everybody.
Right. Now you can share the blame. Like, oh well,
You got one going that
those
way,
guys
three
there.
coming back this way. So you get that multiplier, one to three. 10 people pointing fingers at each other. Well,
Right.
there's like 30 pointing back at me too. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, it might not have been them. Well, I think that's a good place to take a quick break. I think this was the second segment of episode 8 of Pen and Compass. We're talking to Jason Reichenberg. We've talked about his background with kind of degree work and organizing, all that. We kind of delved into his Masonic education advocacy and some of his event planning and how he likes to motivate people to be involved in volunteer organizations, not just Freemasonry. And we're going to take a step to the side and take a quick break. And we're going to come back and we're going to have more conversation and more discussion about a few things about Jason and kind of his viewpoints. And then we're going to delve into one of the main things for this episode is talking about the San Antonio Esoteric Summit that's coming up on June the 7th, 2025. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to get our cosmic Kool-Aid together and get ready to be esoteric. So y'all join us when we come back. Hey RJ, we're here to talk about the San Antonio Esoteric Summit, June 7th, 2025. Thank you for accepting the invitation and all the support you've done with graphic artists and helping us with the poster. We really appreciate that. Excited to have you there. You're going to be talking about your presentation, Esoterics 101. And what do you think about all that? And what would you want to share with those that would want to buy a ticket and come?
Well, I want to say first and foremost that it is the great work that you guys are putting together. This is the kind of thing that I joined Masonry for. I love talking about Masonic, esoteric concepts and philosophy. And yeah, I'm just very excited. As far as the presentation goes, I think we're going to have a wonderful time exploring, really looking at some of the deeper mysteries of Freemasonry. And also, it's going to be ideal for those members and even lodges that need exposure to the concept of what we might deem esoteric Masonry or philosophic Masonry. Schools of wisdom, hidden symbolism, and hints of ultimate revelations are explored within this presentation, and ultimately why those matter for our Freemason brothers and sisters out there today.
Just a reminder, if you'd like to see great speakers line up, and it's only 50 tickets. So it's going to be a very intimate setting, and you're going to get a lot of access where we've got RJ coming in from Illinois, Rodney McGillvary from Indiana, Dirk Hughes from Michigan, and TJ Brumfeld from Nebraska, as well as Ben Williams from Colorado. And they all are going to have their individual segments, but also be interacting in what I call kind of a free-flowing jam session when they're talking about all these philosophies. So go buy your tickets. You can find that at San Antonio Esoteric Summit on Facebook. We have a Facebook page, and that'll direct you to where you can buy your tickets. So thanks, RJ, and we look forward to seeing everybody in San Antonio. Hey, we're here for segment 3, episode 8, for Jason Reichenberg. He is going to talk a little bit more about himself, but we're really going to focus in this segment on San Antonio Esoteric Summit, June 7th, 2025. And hopefully by the end of this, you'll be pausing the podcast episode and stopping and going buy a ticket while they last. We'll be getting into that, but we're both very excited about this event. So we're going to start out with Jason's point of view on things, and if he could amplify and bring out the best in Freemasonry, what would that look like? If he had like a magical ability to just kind of change Freemasonry kind of on a fundamental level.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question, because you kind of look at where the problems lie with certain aspects of Freemasonry. Um, and I think the biggest thing for me would be, if I had a magic wand, um, I think I would probably take away um, kind of this concept of self-ambition, as in uh, you. And part of it I do understand. I want to caveat that by saying that I don't begrudge anyone who is ambitious, because ultimately I think ambition in its purest form is a good thing. I think it motivates you. I think it drives you. I think it's a way to challenge yourself to be better. But if you're only doing it for for your own um, for your own ego, for your own reputation, and not for the betterment of Freemasonry, because that's what we're specifically talking about. Um, so, for example, we have this idea of uh, people we call title chasers, and we know who they are. They go around, they want as many titles as they can possibly, they go up as many lines as possible. And in some ways, I've been described as that. I'm in just about all the organizations. I'm going up all the lines and stuff like that. Um, I and I'm not a perfect person. I mean, you know, there is something about being in charge that makes you feel good. You feel important and stuff like that. I do try to catch myself and say, okay, am I simply doing this because it makes me feel good? It makes me feel like I'm important, or am I doing it because I believe that if I go up this officer line, I'm going to help the organization? And if I'm not helping the organization, then I'm only just doing it for myself. And that's, to me, that's not a good reason. Um, the one thing that kind of a glaring example I saw of that was, um, and I don't think he would mind telling me. I don't think he would mind telling me telling the story, because he's been kind of open about his recent health issues on Facebook and stuff like that. It was Al Mox, okay, and you were sitting there when Al Mox came to my last meeting, and it's a struggle for Al to come to anything.
Because he's battling
Uh,
cancer. Just
Right.
interject that. He's
Yeah.
very, very much battling
He's
cancer.
very selective on what he comes to, but he came. And the only reason he would come to that is he doesn't need to be seen. He's not politicking in any way. He's not going up any more officer lines. You know, he's getting older. He's not in good health, but he's coming out for his because he wants to learn. And to him, masonry has been a lifetime of learning. Despite Al has done all the things, just like some other guys that we know. But Al still comes out because he wants to learn, as opposed to these guys over here who simply come out because they want to cling to power, they want to be seen, they want the adulations and all that kind of stuff. Al, he probably could have slipped in the back door, not be seen by anybody, listened to the whole presentation, and slipped out the back door, and he would have been just as happy to be there as but of course, everybody wants to
The only
see him.
reason he would have spoke was to encourage uh, the presenter that night, which is a good friend of all of ours, David Hill.
Right. And so to me, that would be, if I really could transform, it would be to try and take away that sense of just doing this for your own prestige or your own personal drive because you want to be the top. You want to be worshipful master, and then you want to be district deputy, and then you want to go over and be thrice illustrious master, and then you want to be commander, and then you want to do all those things.
So you can be a
But then,
KYCH.
what's that?
So you can be a Knight York Cross of Honor KYCH.
Right. But okay, so you did all these things. Did those organizations benefit, or was it just for your, or were you the only one that
Yeah.
benefited?
And now that you've got that title, what are you going to do to support the next 25 years or 40 years or whatever you're a member?
Right.
10
Exactly.
years, 5 years. Yeah. So that's a lot of, here we go again. Jeff and Jason align on something, but that's, I've had that conversation with myself off and on for a good 20 years about why am I doing this and what's my motivation? And I hope that, like you, people recognize it not from some far off telescopic look, but they're up close and they see that I'm doing it because I feel like I have something, like you said, to contribute, and that
Right.
I have specific things that I'm talented in, my strengths that I want to contribute, and I want to maybe help round out or shape or balance some of the things that we're not manifesting right now. And that would be kind of
Right.
in so moving along, because I really want to talk about the Esoteric Summit a lot, but I want to ask you these next 3 things that I usually ask. So do you consider yourself a mystic?
Man, come on now. Look,
That's everybody's reaction. Come on,
see,
man.
the thing is, well, and to be honest with you, it is something I still struggle with because I grew up in, um, not Southern Baptist Church. I grew up in a Independent Baptist Church, which is a far different animal. So, um, so to even discuss the possibility of mysticism, anything related to that, to me, there's still a part of me that goes, "You're going, you're
But
damning
but,
yourself."
but I think the definition's been twisted. I think
Yeah,
I think I
it,
think I think Paul was a mystic. No, I don't think. I know. I mean, how many of
right,
the patriarchs were mystics?
yeah,
I mean, mystics means that you're communicating, you're wanting to commune with God on a certain level. And so
right, and that's the
that's kind of
thing.
where I want to help demystify the term
Yeah,
mystic.
and I think that's in that purest definition for certain. Yeah, I would consider myself a mystic. I'm searching for that path to bring me closer uh to the divine, to God, or however you just define it. And so for certain, yeah. If I was being truly like, hedging my bets, I'd say, well, I'm a Christian mystic, whatever. But basically, yeah, in its purest form, that's basically what mysticism is trying to find that path, to bring you, closer to God while you're still here on earth. I think is the best.
Yeah. Have you ever had any visions or encounters or anything like that?
No, and keep in mind, I've only been doing this for a few years. I think a lot of my study right now is really still kind of, I would still consider it more of an as a academic exercise in a lot of ways, where, I'm still researching and learning about a lot of it, as opposed to like, okay, well, this is a path that I think is best for me, and I'm gonna go head down this past or something like that. To me, it right now it's still more of a you know, scholarly, whatever, highfalutin
Yeah, I
term,
get, I
but
get what you're saying.
yeah,
And,
yeah,
and I would encourage you to maybe just let go of some of that and just go, what am I feeling about this?
right,
What do I think about this? Not like kind of what's coming at me after you've kind of, yeah, that not that, yeah, that's what I would encourage you, because I think for me it's always just found when I'm not expecting it.
yeah.
Not, I mean, it's really kind of allowing room for that to happen.
Right.
So describe yourself or label, would you describe yourself or label yourself as an esotericist, which sometimes is a hard word to say.
Um, Probably I wouldn't probably describe myself as that. I certainly am I'm certainly as a student of esotericism right now, for certain. As in, like I was saying before, as in I'm still studying a lot of these different subjects and learning. Because the thing is, I think I still have a very, very basic understanding of a lot of different. I have a very basic understanding of a lot of different philosophies. Like you talking about Kabbalah or alchemy or Zodiac or Rosicrucianism and Martinism and all these different philosophies and stuff like that and esoteric topics and stuff. And so for me at this point, I've been a Freemason for going on 6 years now. I've really been really studying this stuff for about 3 years. So would I label myself an esotericist? Probably not. I would probably say more of I'm still a student of a lot of these things as opposed to, any kind of uh, follower or an expert on any of it for certain. Yeah.
Well, and I think there's, you know, myself going kind of talking about that Southern Baptist background, I think I find things in Freemasonry in symbolism that could be described as esoterics because of a biblical reference there, and as a
Right.
little bit more Judeo-Christian in its explanation and its
Yeah.
unpacking. And so that's one of the things. But so you would think that you would kind of, if you're going to evaluate yourself currently, you'd say you're maybe on an esoteric scale, you're a entered apprentice or fellow craft.
Probably. Yeah. Probably entered apprentice. I ain't at the
You're not a
Pelican
Mart
yet.
Master yet, because that's
No.
like
No.
you're not a Mart Master.
No.
Okay, no, no, definitely not a Master Mason or a Most Excellent Master, huh? Okay.
Right. No one is seeking out my deep theological or philosophical thoughts on all
Well,
of this stuff.
I look forward to the day when they are, because I think that's a possibility. So, your favorite subject kind of in school or growing up, or is there anything that you're fascinated about, or a hobby or something like that?
I the one the one topic in college that I had actually kind of foreseen. Well, first off, I was really into computer programming, computer science. That's what I thought I was going to do. I'm not going to get into the whole history of it. I ended up in sociology. And overall, I found sociology really, really, uh, I don't know. I really wasn't that interested. However, there was a subsection was criminology is a subset of sociology, like why people commit crimes, right? As a group, not individual, but like as societal conditions and all that kind of stuff. Part of criminology that I could see had started to study and could see myself going down and really learning about it. And I still to this day, if you look at my Netflix or Hulu feed, you'll see a lot of this was was cults and how those how those happen and what happens with cults and how someone gets how seemingly intelligent, accomplished people get wrapped up into a philosophy that is so warped and could have almost always leads to bad things happening.
Kind of like being
So
a
that
Dallas Cowboy fan
right,
for the last 30 years or so.
yeah, maybe right. A&M. Oh my God,
Well,
my son is at A&M right now, and
oh, whoa! Look,
you
there's a hot potato in the room.
you want to study cult behavior? Let's see what those Aggies
You're
are
getting to see it
doing.
up. That's part of our rapid fire, by the way. Not exactly, but it's in there. You'll figure
Yeah.
it out later on. But yeah.
But I one of the things that kind of I have seen because yeah, you'll get people that will um oh well, Freemasonry, well, it's like a cult and and stuff like that. And it's like, well, no. Here the difference is the a cult generally will isolate. One of their big things, they isolate people because they only want you hearing one thing. That's what the whole thing is whoever is the leadership of that only wants you to think one certain way, and that's it. Whereas part of Freemasonry is the free exchange of ideas, and you don't actually. That's why we don't define who God is. We refer to him as the great architect of the universe because we accept men from all different kinds of backgrounds. And when we study these philosophies, we don't study one specific philosophy. We kind of study a lot of different philosophies and how they all tie in together. So it's actually the opposite of what a cult would be, because we're like, no, we'll listen to and we'll talk about and we'll study just about anything, because it's all about the search for truth and where is that truth lie and stuff like that. So
So I remembered from one of the previous segments you were talking about, I think adding value to the Masonic groups that you're involved with and leading in those type of things. And I remember it from my background of being and having a marketing degree and knowing those principles and those kind of things. It's just basic kind of sales and marketing principles, which set people's hair on fire whenever I say that, and they get
right.
really defensive. Like, well, this isn't a bit like, okay, well, if it's not a business, then stop paying money to it. Because
Right.
you've got to pay. We've got to live in the. Well, I don't want it to be like a business. It's like, okay, well, it is like a business already, and you don't get to really choose that, and that's kind of the way economics work. And so, I think there's some disconnect sometimes that we should be a little bit more thinking about not going out and doing a survey and doing a marketing research and all these kind of things, but like what you were talking about, where when you were talking about collaborating and kind of building a product and a product mix, more or less, an inventory of, okay, well, if you're going to have nails, then you got to have hammers
Right.
and those kind of things. And so, this is kind of logical progression of what do we not have here that's missing that would add another 5 or 10 customers coming into our store, or frequenting our location, that would up our
Yeah.
our existence and our goal and our mission here.
Yeah.
But
And that's the thing
people
is,
freak out whenever I talk about that.
yeah. And that's part of it is, I education, Masonic education is a big driving force for me. But I also recognize it's not the end all be all to everything. I think in a lot of ways, education, you know, so I belong to two lodges, one in San Antonio, one here in Seguin. The one in San Antonio, we rent the building from the shrine. Okay. So as far as worrying about bills and stuff like that, I mean, the main thing is we pay our rent every month. Not a big deal. Conversely, you go out to Seguin and we own the building. So every month we have to worry about water, electricity, and building maintenance and major projects and all that kind of stuff. So
Oh,
whereas
there's a
you
light
could,
bulb out on the sign. We gotta go fix that.
right,
Somebody's gonna change that out. Oh, where do we go buy that? Oh, well, we bought it last time at this hardware store. Or, oh, they're out of business now. Like, oh,
right.
we gotta find.
So there's a lot more to quote worry about at Guadalupe Lodge as opposed to Victory Lodge. So when you say, well, you should be doing education with a lodge like Victory, it's very easy because we don't have to worry about a bunch of other things. Now, you go out to Guadalupe Lodge, a little bit more of a challenge, and you can see where education would be kind of pushed aside because you got to worry about a lot more things. So, and, and it's also you have to look at the culture of the lodge. Um, you know, Seguin is a little bit more everybody most of the guys are probably neighbors or at least one or two other guys in the lodge. We're here in a local community. Guys have known each other for years and years and years. The guys in at Victory Lodge, a little bit more spread out. That we're not really centrally located in one particular area. We're kind of generally more northeast San Antonio, but that covers like a
It's more
huge,
suburban, I would say, definitely. If not,
right,
not really urban, but I would say, compare or metropolitan. But y'all are definitely suburban at Victory,
right.
from my experiences.
So yeah, so there's a little bit of culture that you kind of have to kind of balance and to come in there and just say, well, you guys should be doing, you know, this education because if you're not doing that, well, then you're just not doing masonry. It's like, well, you know what? Some guys, if all they want to do is they want to come to the lodge, they want to go through the degrees, they want to learn the lessons from them, and then they stay for the brotherhood and they want to contribute to our charity programs and stuff like that. Um, it's not for me to say that their masonry is any less valid than what mine is. And so I have to kind of balance that when I'm talking to these two different lodges because it's a little bit of a different culture. And I think there's room in masonry. There's room in masonry for all of that. And charity for some guys means we do charity work, whereas someone who's on the more esoteric or mystical side would say, well, charity is really, you know, how the law of love and how you help each other spiritually. And part of the way to do that is through these, esoteric lessons on and stuff like that. So our definition of charity goes this way, whereas theirs says, well, no, charity is when you help the poor and indigent in your area and you
Yeah.
help lift them up.
Yeah,
So,
you fundraise and then you give out a scholarship back to the community or something like that.
right, yeah. And to me, and I will support both. I'm involved in all of that. Just about the only thing I don't really do is I don't work in the kitchen. Man, if at a fish fry, I'm out there. I'm the guy that kind of help get things set up. But if you ask me to start dropping fish into fryers, I'm not the guy. I'm not the guy to do that. I'll find somebody to help you do that, but that's
Yeah.
not me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, for me, there's a lot of guys that say, this is what I love about my Masonic calendar and it's kind of different annual events. And
Mhm.
for me, for years, some of it's because it's 10 minutes from my house, but whenever we get to go, golly, I've got, man, we've been going for, I'd have to go back and look at the first year that we had it. I remember when it didn't exist, but Texas Masonic Family Day in October. I think it's usually the
Right.
second Saturday in October. And I've only missed like once, and that was like this year, or excuse me, 2024, because I was speaking in Kansas at an event, and that's the first time I think I've missed ever, and since its inception. And it's great, like Friday night they start the barbecue contest for the next day at brisket, and then they have ribs so that everybody cooks extra stuff, and so it's like this whole, like, would be like a college football game, big tailgate type atmosphere. And people, we have a pecan grove there on the massive acreage. Over 100 years we've owned that property,
Right.
and the Most Excellent Grand Royal Arch chapter of Texas has owned that, and so that's just a fun day, and you get to be a Freemason. You don't wear an apron. If you're wearing a funny hat, it's a sun hat to help you with your skin cancer,
Right.
and you've got on, a t-shirt or whatever, and you're walking around. Hopefully it's warm enough for kind of, no jackets, and it's a nice bright sunny day in October in Arlington, Texas, beautiful downtown Arlington, Texas. But that's just as much a time to get excited and be a part of things for me, and go be a Mason that day. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
take your family. It's a very family encouraged event that day. Things there for people on all levels. So kind of going to that, something that we're trying to provide kind of back internally in the internal community is giving folks an opportunity, well, folks, brethren, Master Masons, an opportunity for an esoteric summit in your backyard
Yes.
here in San Antonio. And how long have we been working on this? Since like almost coming up on about a year.
Yeah,
When was it?
probably, probably a little over or close to a year. I'm usually a year out on my planning, so yeah, that's probably
Yeah.
about right.
And
Yeah.
so speaking of in previous segments, we've talked about the continuing Masonic education, and I'm privileged to be on the email list and Facebook event kind of target group. And every now and then I get a chance to sit in on a Monday night, usually the third Monday of the
Third
month,
Monday. Yeah.
and y'all are going over whatever lesson, and I get to be on there with the aforementioned Brad Kohanke and the Chris Williams of the world, and the Jason Reichenbergs, and Gordon Scheibels and Al Mox,
Right.
and all this stuff. And one night, remember what happened and kind of the story, kind of think in your mind, kind of that meeting, whenever everybody on there kind of dwindled down, and
Yeah. So the idea was
or a
to
Zoom meeting, by the way.
whether
We were on a
it
Zoom meeting, by the
was
way.
on Zooming.
Yeah.
And so I had I had the idea. The initial idea I had, I simply wanted to do a festive board at the end of my Worshipful Mastery year. And as I kept seeing these Masonic cons, Triune Lodge had put on um, a day-long summit or symposium. I can't remember which they called it.
Yeah.
Um, and I've been to a couple of them, and stuff, and I was like, man, these are, I really enjoyed it, and they seem to be getting more popular because it was a way to come see guys that didn't always get to see unless they came to your lodge. Um, and so I thought, I'm here at the shrine, probably got a pretty good venue, and if I can get the other lodges that meet at Alcifar to assist with this, that we might be able to put on a summit, like
We
a
eventually
full,
called it a summit. It had a lot of working titles.
yeah, a lot of
Before
working titles.
that we had
So,
a few
yeah,
other things that we came up with.
conference. I think we call it a conference, and then a
Woo,
symposium, and then
symposiums, and yeah, we were throwing out all
yeah.
kinds of brainstorms. Yeah.
Well, the one guy that I know that I talk to a lot, obviously, is Brad Kohanke, and he's been to a lot of these. So I'd asked him to stay on after the CME to get an idea as to, as a speaker, what do you expect? You
Mhm.
know, when you get invited to one of these, like, what am I paying these people? Am I just doing their transportation? Like, what is it is, and you happen to be on there as well. And it was kind of coming to the end of the meeting, and
Yeah,
everybody was
never leave a meeting in person or virtually first. I'm bad about being one of the last. Like,
right,
okay, Jeff, you have to go somewhere else. Like, you
right,
can stay here, but you can't. You can keep doing what you're doing, but you can't stay here and do it.
right. So so everybody's kind of jumping off, and then I thought, well, you've done a lot of these, as well, and so you stayed on, and I told him my idea, what I wanted to do, and he had some thoughts on it, and then you were talking about your thoughts on it, and the kind of people you were getting, and so when this kind of get fleshed out, it was at the time, um, there was another lodge that was going to have their symposium again, but mostly focused on speakers from around Texas. So I thought, and so your idea was then, well, let's get guys from outside of Texas, guys that don't come here a lot, an opportunity for particularly guys in this area, really would never see these guys unless pick up their published works or saw them on the podcast or anything like that. But
Or if you happen to stumble into their area,
right.
or yeah,
But what I did want to do is, I didn't want to make this like try, or at least try to make this like couple hundred people come into this thing, because, well, first off, you know scalability, you want to set your sights too high. So I'm thinking around 50 attendees, right? But in addition to that, I think there is a lot of value in coming to something like this, to where, if you keep the crowd small enough, that there's a lot more opportunity for individual engagement. And that's where I thought this could really have some extra value to it, that not only are you going to be able to come and sit through these presentations, but you probably are also going to have a chance to actually talk with these guys,
and
and
have a substantive
right, meaningful
conversation.
conversation. Yes.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that the price of the summit needs to reflect that, and that it does. That, you know
Which
this kind
is
of thing costs, like,
yeah, yeah.
so, and
So
it's not a fundraiser, and it
yeah.
is no way a fundraiser for any of these lodges. The plan is quite simply to break even. If there is any money left over, more than likely it probably will just get rolled over
Yeah,
into the
sustainability.
one for next year or
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
But there's no, like, this is not part of our operating budget for Victory Lodge or Cibolo or anything like
Yeah.
that. So
So you have 50 tickets. We've already sold a handful of them. This
mhm,
is almost the last week of January 2025. You've
right.
got June 7th, 2025,
Mhm,
and I'm going to go through because I'm an outside salesman. You always tell people what they're buying before you hand them a bill. So
right.
we're gonna before we give the individual ticket price. By the way, we're really gonna only allow, even if you're into Hermetic philosophy and esoterics. If you're not a Master Mason, we're not, because my presentation, first of all, is set up for Master Masons only. And so at this time, this particular round, we're going to kind of limit that group to Freemasons who are Master Masons and not anyone else. Not that there's going to be a lot of things that would be, but also sometimes we don't want people to ask questions from the floor and get told they really can't ask that publicly, and that they'll have to go privately to that presenter. So there's some considerations there. I've already been asked recently, especially as we've gone to Grand Chapter, Grand Council, and Grand Lodge, and you and I have been promoting that either online, through Facebook, or in person. And I've gotten that question, and it's like, yeah, this is not a couples event. This is not for non-Masons,
Right.
And maybe in the future, but not this time around. So we have myself. It was kind of funny, but I just was like, okay, as I was designing the program it should build on each other, and so we start real basic. And that's interpreting symbolism, which is going to be something that you're going to need to do if you're going to kind of progress in the sciences and things and arts that we're going to be talking about that day. The next thing is myself. I'll be talking about interpreting symbolism, Jeff Bennett. And then the next time slot is RJ Johnson, and he is going to be talking about Esoterics 101. So pretty much he's going to be giving an overview for everything that's going to be considered for the rest of the day. And kind of just a good introductory thing. And that's the way you write good literature. You tell them or especially whenever you're trying to do things that are persuasive and you're trying to help people learn things, you write what they're going to learn. So symbolism and Esoterics 101. And then you're going to tell them you're telling them what you're telling them. And then you're going to tell them what you told them. And so the whole structure of the day is kind of set up like that. The third presentation of the day is our good buddy, the resident alchemist himself, the Masonic alchemist himself, Rodney McGillvary, and he's going to be doing a presentation on alchemy. And he's actually going to do a little bit of a hands-on experiment, as much as we can do with him traveling on the road from Indiana. Oh, by the way, RJ Johnson, Whence Came You podcast, lives in Illinois area. And then TJ Brumfeld is a good buddy of mine from Nebraska, and he is very well versed in Kabbalah, and I would consider him a subject matter expert on that. He's going to be doing 2 segments, one before lunch, talking about kind of everything that you would think of about Kabbalah and the different things, describing that, again, kind of setting down the basics and fundamentals for people coming to this. And then afterwards, he's going to be talking about the tree of life and the different types of Kabbalahs, and kind of like we used to have those little exercises in elementary school where you would say this and this, and you draw a line, and that's what he's going to be kind of doing, connecting those dots. The fourth presenter of the day will be Dirk Hughes. He's the Grand Librarian, Grand Historian of Michigan, Grand Lodge of Michigan, and he is an actual beekeeper. And he has a TED Talk that he's actually done. It's recorded on YouTube, but he's going to take that and bring in the symbol of the beehive in Freemasonry, and in kind of ancient cultures and different groups, and also kind of blend in and weave in Hermetic philosophy and principles and things like that.
Right.
Then we're going to have 2 open segments with multiple presenters involved, speakers involved, and the one thing I'm kind of calling the esoteric jam or something like that. And that's going to be where it's kind of like a jam session where everybody just kind of gets out their instruments and starts playing songs and tunes and just kind of riffs off of each other. That's going to be everybody but me, and Frank's going to be kind of leading that, Frank Zepp. And they're just going to be talking about Hermetic philosophies, and a lot of the things that they heard earlier in the day. They're just going to get a kind of an unscripted, in the moment, really cool opportunity to play off of each other and to ask maybe maybe Robert Johnson, R.J. Johnson asks Rodney about his presentation, or Ben Williams jumps in and talks to TJ about what he knows about Kabbalah, or all these different things. I think it's going to be that by itself would be almost worth the price of the ticket. And then we're all going to get on a speakers panel, which is very common at these kind of things, these events. And we're going to all take the same 3 questions and kind of talk about our own processes and what we do in our creative processes and kind of in our own things. So Ben Williams, that's a little bit separate. He'll be speaking at the festive board. So just that right there ends the Esoteric Summit for the day. And the price of that ticket, if there's only 50 available, Jason, is how much? And how can they find that ticket also?
It's $150. And you can go to so this summit is jointly hosted by Victory Masonic Lodge, Cibolo Masonic Lodge, and Patterson Masonic Lodge. And I can confirm that I just confirmed today that Triune Masonic Lodge is also going to host this as well. And so I haven't added Triune Lodge as a host lodge yet, but if you go out to the Facebook page of either Victory, Cibolo, or Patterson Lodge and go to the event page, you'll see the San Antonio Esoteric Summit, and there is a link to the ticket there. The $150 for the summit, and then $75 for the festive board that evening. The festive board is only is limited to 30, so it's even less. So there's
outside participants. Yeah, there'll be more than 30 people there, but outside.
Yeah, paid attendees. There's only 30 are allowed.
And at that, the keynote speaker, or kind of the final summit that day, is the Knights Templar editor-in-chief, and he's also the founder of Rocky Mountain Mason magazine, as well as Esoteric Mason magazine, our own Ben Williams. And so he'll be talking. He'll get some time earlier in the day, and Ben's like me; he can't sit in a room and be quiet for 8 hours. So I know he'll be jumping up there and maybe even asking questions from the floor to keep the discussion going in different time segments. But $150 plus 75, and then we have a host hotel where we have some block of rooms. Which
we do, and that the block of rooms is only available as a block until May 1st. So after May 1st, whatever we haven't booked gets released. So you may be able to find that hotel there, or not. They'll just release those.
Which hotel is that?
It's a Residence Inn. It's so the whole summit is being held at Alcifar Shriners in San Antonio, Texas. The Resident Inn is right there on Loop 1604, maybe 2 blocks away from the Shriners, right there.
And so that's in North San Antonio, off of the Loop. And how far is that from all the fun stuff that they can do? One of the reasons that we're excited about having something like this in San Antonio is in the summertime, people want to take vacations, and so they can bring their families with them, be with us on Saturday, and then before or after Saturday, June the 7th, go do all the fun, great touristy things in San Antonio. Which, how far are we from like downtown, Riverwalk, Alamo?
Oh, you're probably about a 20-minute drive down to downtown, where the Riverwalk, Alamo, all that kind of stuff. We have
in the Munger Hotel, where Teddy Rose. It's really cool to go there and be in the bar where the Rough Riders for Teddy Roosevelt got those together there, and it's a really cool town.
Yeah,
San Antonio.
But I mean, we also have Six Flags is is right here. Fiesta over Texas, and
Yes,
SeaWorld is
Texas, yep. SeaWorld, yep.
actually Fiesta, Texas is right there. I mean, probably within terrible radio. Fiesta, Texas, right there, and then SeaWorld is over on the west side of San Antonio, but right there off of the 1604 loop over on the west side. So, and there's many other things to do in San Antonio. So if you're looking to like bring the family for the weekend, if you plan it out right, it actually is a kind of a nice time
It'd
to.
also be a great opportunity for a bunch of guys from the same Masonic group, whether they be from a lodge or a Scottish Rite Valley or York Rite Chapter Council, that just want to go do a Masonic road trip. Be a great opportunity for them too. You can go do
Exactly.
stuff at Green Hall. There's a few places to get in trouble. In and around, you could go to Lukenbach, and there's all kinds of country music destinations and stuff just within an hour drive.
Yes.
Great cabins out in the hill country and all kinds of options. So if you
Yeah.
if you sign up for a ticket and you're looking for, hey, what would y'all recommend for we're from out of state, especially we want to come to San Antonio. We've always wanted to come, and this is a good reason. We would love to help tour guide for you and show you some Texas hospitality, definitely.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. We're really excited about it, and I think I can't say thanks enough for. I remember almost to the time and date. Well, not the date, but I remember 3 days late, 2 days later, you called me up and you said, or you texted me and you said, "Hey, you got time for a phone call?" And so it was late in the afternoon. I'm an outside sales, so I was probably driving back from somewhere
Right.
or driving to somewhere, and you were like, "Okay, I like your idea about bringing in guys from different states. Um, who do you think you can get?" And I started naming off some names, and the cool thing for me was you gave me all the information I needed, and virtually, and then sometimes on a phone call, I was interacting with the speakers that we have, and a few that we have in the reserves for hopefully
Right.
we'll have next year or the years after. I just couldn't schedule them properly for this particular event in 2025. And it was amazing how they were all like, "Yeah, let's go. This sounds awesome." And it's been fun for me whenever we've talked about it with RJ Johnson on this program and a few other ways that I've talked to him. He's been I'm excited, and Rodney says the same thing. TJ says the same thing. Dirk, um, Ben Williams, they're just excited to get to be around the other guys. They're not, kind of going back to your taking your ego and decentralizing it. They're excited that they're going to get to experience everybody else's present. They're almost excited
Yeah.
about that as coming themselves. So,
Right. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so there's already this like energy and this wave of this force kind of going on with this event that I think if you come, you'll feel it, you'll gather it, and you'll want more of it. So with that, we're going to end this segment. We got one more segment, so rapid fire, either or questions I have, and then a few other things, and then we'll wrap it up for this episode 8 with Jason Reichenberg. Thank you for everything, and let's take a real quick break. Remember to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel and all the Pen and Compass episodes.
Hey everybody, Robert Johnson here. Just really excited to share with you that I'm going to be at the San Antonio Esoteric Summit. I'm excited to be presenting on Esoterics 101. What is that? Well, it's really designed to be a beginning look at the deeper mysteries within Freemasonry and that span across multiple schools of wisdom. It's ideal for lodges that need exposure to the concept of esoteric masonry or individual brothers who want to take that first step into understanding a little bit more about those kind of philosophical ideas within the craft. Schools of wisdom, hidden symbolism, and hints at an ultimate revelation are going to be explored. And I'm looking forward to sharing all that with you again at the San Antonio Esoteric Summit. Thank you, and I hope to see you there.
Well, we're back for the final segment of this episode of Pen and Compass. It's episode 8. We've got the founder and visionary for none other than the San Antonio Esoteric Summit, and my good buddy and companion, cousin, about 7 other things that we could call each other Masonically. And we're going to do a kind of a fun segment here, kind of an either or. There's no right or wrong answers here. But we're going to go through these kind of rapid fast and ask you these questions. So the first one
All
that
right.
I
Well,
always ask,
before you get started, I
Yeah.
will let you know. I told you I grew up independent Baptist. Listening to any kind of music, unless it was Christian music, was heavily frowned upon. So if you ask me anything about music, I'm probably just guessing. So I have no deeper thoughts on why I'm picking one or the other. So just caveating with that.
okay, well, you can guess or yeah. Okay, well, I'm adaptable on the fly. Let me
No, you can ask me anything you want. Just
No,
letting you know. I may
I
be
got you
making some
covered.
of it up.
No, I got you covered. I'm glad you said that. I didn't research very much on this, but that's good since you've seen this. We're a few episodes in, so you know where I'm gonna go with this.
I am a fan of this podcast, so I have watched the episodes.
He's a supporter of the pod. He's
I
a
am
fan
sort
of
of
the
the
pod.
podcast.
Yeah. So, Stones or Beatles?
Beatles.
Star Wars or
They're
Star
a group,
Trek?
right? Star Wars.
Okay, now you're getting better. There are no right answers. Oh, you should have answered Stones. Okay. Think Freemason. No. Stevie Ray Vaughan, Eddie Van Halen.
I know the name Eddie Van Halen.
Okay. How about Michael W. Smith or Chris Tomlin? You don't know contemporary Christian either?
No,
All right.
yeah.
All right, then
They didn't like that either. I'm talking about they wanted you to listen to gospel music.
Okay. Oak Ridge Boys or Gaither Band?
Oak Ridge. I do actually like the Oak Ridge Boys.
Bappa, Mal. Elvira, huh? Okay. Then here's one that's some of these have a few hidden messages in them. They're very esoteric. Gators or elephants?
Well, I went to the University of Florida, so Gators.
The elephants would be representative of
Alabama.
Roll Tide, yes.
Yes.
So we'll go back to one more. I can't get away from this one. Elvis or Johnny Cash?
Elvis.
Yeah. Sang a lot of gospel music, so you're probably allowed to listen to him. So yeah. No. How Great Thou Art by Elvis? I mean, that's like Billy Graham.
No, well, I mean, the song itself, sure.
Oh, the song itself, not Elvis singing. Okay, I got you. Maroon or purple?
I had to go with Maroon. Sons at Texas A&M, so I
My
got
money and my son and my money go there.
Everything's going up there.
Effect. Okay. Square or triangle?
Triangle.
Led Zeppelin or The Who?
Led Zeppelin.
Queen. This is almost more fun. Queen or Pink Floyd?
Queen.
AC/DC or Black Sabbath?
AC/DC. Yeah. Now I do actually listen to AC/DC. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you're in San Antonio. You got to listen to hard rock. It's a hard rock town, according to Charlie Robinson. So it's easy time. Def Leppard or Motley Crue?
Def Leppard.
Interesting. That's 2 in a row. Middle Earth or Narnia?
Middle Earth.
Manly P. Hall or Aleister Crowley?
Manly P. Hall. Let's not, I'm trying to save my soul here a little bit.
I guess I should have made it harder on you and asked you A.E. Waite instead of Aleister Crowley. Sean Connery or Daniel Craig?
Sean Connery.
I probably know the answer to these next few, but we'll still ask them. Bowler or fedora?
Bowler. Well, Manly P. Hall, AMD, that's what we wear.
I know. That's what I was, yeah.
Yeah.
We've met before, man. Belt or suspenders?
I actually wear both right now.
Yeah,
it's suspenders that hook to the belt.
gotcha.
It's ridiculous. I cover it up with a vest. My seat. Don't tell anybody.
Don't tell anybody. We're just recording this, putting it up on YouTube. Millions of subscribers. Okay. Buttons or cufflinks?
Cufflinks.
Now this is a little bit more. Which way do you fork in the road here? Enchiladas or sushi?
Sushi, actually.
Love it.
Yeah.
Good to know. I'll catalog that. Burgers or tacos?
Burgers.
Wow.
I know it's a sin in here in South Texas. I get it, but
You're a recent addition down there.
I did grow up in Florida. I mean, I got to Texas as soon as I could, but yeah, burgers for certain.
All right. Now this one is post holiday season 2024, and I think I know the answer to this, but I still want to ask it. Halloween or Christmas decorations?
Have you seen my videos? Christmas for certain.
Jason's taken out of a home equity loan to pay for his Christmas, his deck the halls,
Right.
Christmas lighting.
It may have gotten a little out of control. We'll see.
So, Irish or Scotch whiskey?
Scotch.
City or country estate? I know the answer to this one. But...
Country. I mean, that's where I'm at.
Yeah,
ranch in South Texas. I'm country estate.
So, what would you say your vision for your Masonic career kind of is moving forward?
I would like to unite all of the Grand Lodges in the world and be the Grand Master. No?
Sounds like a good gig for you.
No, no, I kind of alluded to this earlier. I think what I would like to see is whatever success that I have, that it inspires someone to do the same and repeat it somewhere else and have them be successful. I talked about the York Right Club that I've encouraged guys, and so to me, I would love to see somebody take that and form a club, and then it becomes a chapter and council, and for somebody out of that chapter and council to move up into the grand line and become, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to be my success. I would love to have an impact enough that someone was inspired enough to do it somewhere else. I think ultimately in my Masonic career, that's what I would like to see. Is I would honestly, it sounds trite, but honestly, I would like to see someone else exceed what I'm doing, but because of the impact that I had on them, I think is ultimately what I would like to see out of my Masonic career.
Wow.
So
That's definitely a great place to end our discussion, because that's definitely what you've been espousing and telling us this whole episode. And so, with that, definitely want to say that. So, patrons, partners, populace, we're stepping off of this magic carpet ride we've been on. Jason and I have these on a regular basis, and y'all, congratulations, you got to see one of them up close and personal. This is pretty much we just call this a Wednesday down here in Texas with me and Jason wanting to interact and something going on. But anyway, this is the 8th episode, and we're stepping out of our magic time machine here. And just remind you that the 8 glorious beatitudes given to us in Scripture of our own personal spiritual growth, those are in the New Testament. And if you would like to go find those, they'll definitely edify your soul and your life. So now we've got to mix again, back with the world, leave the sacred retreat. And, written on, the past is always written on quill and parchment. The present finds libraries full of books, and the future will be seen filling the cosmos with great and mighty digital content. Thanks again, Jason, for everything that you're doing in Texas Freemasonry, being a part of Pen and Compass, and great episode. Really enjoyed being here and getting a chance to. I know you well, but man, I learned so many extra things about you, and I appreciate that. And thanks for the opportunity also to work with you on the Esoteric Summit, June 7th, 2025. But here we go. We're getting out of here. And remember, Pen and Compass is all about getting in-depth, amazing conversations with intriguing Masonic authors, artists, writers, podcasters, content creators, Masonic educators and advocates like Jason, presenters, esotericists, and all kinds of mystical fun going on. So be ready in 2025. In the spring, we'll be bringing you a second podcast, which will be music related. It'll be called Masonic Vibe, a podcast for Masons who like music. And we've got some surprises and some fun stuff going on there. So with that, we're going to wrap it up. Light, life, goodness, peace, and grace to all mankind. And we're out of here. That ends episode 8. We'll catch you next time. Woo, God bless Texas. Man, remember the Alamo.